I
Well,
don't know.
welcome to the fourth session of the Ballot in the Bible book study. We're having a conversation around just learnings about what it means to have an author in residence and processing some of the ideas and learning that we experienced with Kaitlyn Schiess this past weekend. So we've already had some conversation. I apologize. I'm recording this a little bit in process, but we're going to continue the conversation and invite those of you who are watching later to think about your own questions and some of the learnings that came out of this experience. We'll bounce to Sharon McCormick, who had a thought for us to process.
Well, I have two things now. One was that in addition to stating that I'm a Christian, I'm hesitant about that, but I also am really hesitant about telling people I'm a pastor because I think it makes them uncomfortable. And so like I go to deep water aerobics at the Y, and half of those people didn't know for years that I was a pastor. And then finally somebody found out about it. And so now they kind of know, and we're friends, and so it's okay. But that's something I kind of discovered some after retirement. And then the thing that her book did for me as personally was that she did all that work on Jeremiah, Seek the Welfare of the City. And I was the executive director of Denver Urban Ministries, which is an urban ministry downtown Denver, right out of seminary. For 7 years, I did that. And I went around to suburban churches, and that's the text I used because I was trying to get money. I was trying to help. I mean, I'm thinking this through a lot. And I tried to find my old sermon because I used the same one several times, but I think I threw it out in our move. I can't find it. So I don't know how I did. I hope I did it as authentically as I could, and I didn't mess up the text and manipulate it. I hope I used it authentically. I wanted to see it. I can't find it. But what I wanted to do, I remember, was I wanted them to hear, especially in suburbia, that we had a responsibility to seek the welfare of the city and to try to, and so we did urban tours. You know, we brought people from suburbia in, and we had tours to all different kinds of facilities that weren't just denim things. And, you know, that we got buses and we took people around to see. The gathering place was a place for women that were single with children. And we took them here and we took them there. And at that time, Epworth had our food bank. And, you know, we did all that kind of stuff for 7 years. And everywhere I went, I said that sermon if it was new. Seek the welfare of the city. And then is it Nehemiah that built the city that had called him back from? Yeah, I used that text too about how they would take turns building sections of the wall to protect themselves after their Babylonian experience, and how they worked together to cultivate a safe place. And I would use that text. And so it got me to thinking about how much pastors, and myself, I'm more thinking about how many times did I want something to happen and pick a text ahead of time to match what I was hoping would happen. And is that appropriate? Right. I mean, it's really made me think about things. And I've gotten out some of my old sermons that I have online, because I threw away this many files, you know, 3 times that when we downsized. But anyway, it's really made me do some reflecting about how do pastors maintain our exegesis so that we're not manipulating, but trying to communicate the message intent, you know. And I think it's a very interesting challenge, and that's what really got me about the book, especially when she did the Jeremiah stuff. I went, whoa.
I like that. Yeah, Sharon. And the other thing about the Jeremiah text, Jeremiah 29, that text is that Jeremiah is saying to these exiles
Uh-huh.
the people who have been planted in a new land seek the welfare of these people you don't really like or want to be with.
Right,
And
right.
so that also really works with that suburban urban kind of situation. But to your point, and do you remember what she said? And I found this as a poignant takeaway when she said, you know, to approach scripture expecting that there will be a personal spiritual message for you and a public theology message for you in that text. If we don't do exactly what you were concerned about, Sharon, which is eisegeting, which is reading what we want into the text.
Right.
Yeah. It's a real slippery slope, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not only for pastors, but for all of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's picking. Thank
Yeah.
you. Jenny, what
You know, I made sure that we had, I personally recruited a person from every church in the district to be on the board. And we had quarterly board meetings, and then we had a small group that really made a lot of the decisions. But they all had to have a task. And part of the reason I got them to come, I think, was because of that, sir. I mean, because of seeking the welfare of the city from suburbia, going in. And so I don't know whether that was good or bad. It worked well to get a bunch of volunteers. I know that. And people were really committed, but I still worry about it.
Mhm.
Anyway, enough. I said
Thank
enough.
you for that. Thanks for that.
It sounds to me like
Ben, hang on, just Jenny was trying to get in, and then if
Yes.
you don't, okay.
The thing that I found with her book is that, you, as a progressive, you kind of have this, I don't know, view of evangelicals. And it's not necessarily nice. And I've read enough that, it's really concerning, the kind of manipulation that they have used, not to say that we all haven't misused text, probably as several people have mentioned, because, you can make any text support any point you want to make.
Right.
And so this was a really good reminder that there are many things that you need to do, whether it's, chunk what you read rather than just pulling out a verse, put it in the context of the history that it was written for, and so on. There's so many different things, but I kind of struggled with it as I went along because I thought she's pretty evangelical.
Used a lot of that language.
Yeah. And but after last night and listening to what she had to say, she is really brilliant. And she had so many good things and good takeaways. I've got all these little sticky notes that I wrote different things on, but I think she has, as you said, blended all these different things together to come up with some stuff that really makes sense. And I got a lot out of it in the end. I wasn't sure I was going to for a little while, but I think she's offered us, a chance to look at ourselves, a chance to evaluate how we respond. And so I appreciated that.
On your, thanks, Jenny. On your sticky notes, was there one particular takeaway that you can kind of see as actionable as you step away from the study?
I think she talked a lot about honesty and be honest about where we're coming from. And that when you practice hospitality, that you're not you're not just offering it, but you are giving the other party a chance to offer a gift back to you. And I thought that was important, a reciprocal thing, because, it's not just in your own mind saying, I want to give this gift to you, but you have to be open to receiving it back.
Mhm.
And I thought that was really important. So she said something like, you are different from me and you can give your gift of uniqueness to me.
I like that.
Mhm.
And there's just tons of stuff I wrote down, so I don't need to monopolize the conversation, but I just thought she had a lot of valuable things to say, and she just brought it together so well.
Mhm.
And it was just fascinating to listen to her.
That's awesome. Thanks. Martha, do you have a takeaway that you wanted to share or impressions that you had as you were listening? Or Debbie?
Maybe Debbie does. I don't really. I had a difficult time hearing her.
Did you?
Mhm. So I got glimpses,
Yeah.
but I didn't get the whole thing, and I'm not able to process it once I get it. So,
Oh, well, thank you
but
for
I like having, hearing each of you say what you got from it, and I do remember, parts of it came through really well, but not all of it. So
I'm sorry.
that's all right.
She
For
did
joining us.
drop her voice on the words, and so it was hard to hear on
Yeah,
the.
and she kind of move into a fast pace.
Yeah.
sometimes. And
Yeah.
yeah, I picked up on that too, that I was concerned that was maybe a part of why folks might have a hard time hearing.
Well, that's something that's on the top of my Christmas list to my two kids. Is I want one of them to get me headsets so I can plug it into the
Oh, good.
plug it
And
into.
we have hearing devices at the church too. So
Well, I hadn't needed it until Sunday
yeah.
morning with her sitting there.
Right.
There's a difference of sitting and standing, when you're speaking, and so it just
Right.
anyway. But I enjoyed the book and our Tuesday night gathering. So
good. I'm glad you're here. Debbie, were you going to say something?
Well, I was trying to think of something, but yeah, no. Well, it's not content, but I was and some people have mentioned it. I was so impressed last night at her, and it sounded like you had given her the questions ahead of time, but then even during the after part, like I was super impressed at her extemporaneous speaking ability.
Yeah.
That was, as a teacher, right? Like I had to do that all the time, and but I don't think I was all that composed. Like I was very impressed with her extemporaneous speaking ability. That was like, wow, she's amazing.
Very, very grounded. Yeah. In her
She was
awareness.
a good preacher too.
Mhm. Very much.
Her sermon was great.
I'll give Duke credit for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's where she cultivated that. Well, there's if you have the book in front of you, page 177, this is actually a quote that I lifted up on the very first class of our time, but I just thought we might revisit it now, having kind of been on this journey and thinking through things in some new ways. The second full paragraph on page 177, she says, "We are a Bible-haunted nation. How we respond is of crucial importance. Will we champion the unique power, authority, and distinctive narrative of Scripture to motivate political work, or will we continue to half-heartedly cheer when a politician gives the Bible a PR boost? Hopefully, these chapters have given you a sense of the hermeneutical questions, moral quandaries, and spiritual formation problems that impact our reading and use of Scripture in political arguments. Hopefully these chapters have given you tangible examples you can wrestle with in community with people who are different from you and disagree with you. Hopefully these chapters can help shape better, more productive, and more faithful conversations among Christians about what we're doing when we cite the Bible in our political disputes. So I'm going to broaden this idea and ask, what do we need to do in our church community to live into some of these visions of the hopefullys? Yeah, Debbie?
I had underlined the next to the last one about wrestling within community. But I double underlined with people who are different and disagree with you. Like, you know, I know that I'm guilty of, you know, chuckling at my Trumper acquaintances and family and whatever, that how much they are in a silo. And then I have to realize that I have to be really careful, or I end up in the same but different, a different silo, but in the same situation. And so that like I said, I double underlined the part about wrestling with it, with people who are different from you. And I don't know what we can do as a church to make sure that we're hearing like it. Like, I love coming to church on Sunday morning, right? Because we don't all think exactly the same, but we're kind of on the same highway at least. And what can we do to bring those really different voices, like having Kaitlyn, to bring those really different voices like into our midst?
Yeah, yeah.
I
So,
hope I can, excuse me, go ahead, Katie.
well, I remember there was a time when the church was arguing a lot at the council was about having a group meet in the church. They just met every month, and they never, you know, that's all they did. It was a meeting space. And there were people who got really upset because the group was Arvadans for Progressive Action, and they thought we shouldn't be doing that. And I said, okay, we're not, nobody's talking to anybody, you know, they're meeting privately and leaving, and nothing is coming up, nothing's coming from the pulpit. And some guy said, well, then we should have people from the conservative, you know, action come and meet here too. And I said, well, because we should be fair. And I said, but we're a progressive liberal church. That's what we are. I mean, so why would people who aren't that want to be here? And
I remember that
know,
conversation.
and I
Yeah.
don't know that I want to hear. I mean, I hear enough already. I mean, how much do we want to hear what they think? I mean, we're not going to change our mind. We're not going to change their mind. So I would expect that people who come to our church are coming because it's progressive and liberal, and I think that's fine. And I'm not, other people can believe whatever they want, and I would listen to them civilly, but are we going to get anywhere with them?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important and honest question, Katie. And it kind of draws me back to the sermon from Sunday at the 8:15 service. I talked about, you know, if we're only called to civility, and civility to some extent means, well, I'm going to listen to you, but kind of tolerate you. And a call as an alternative to communion, where there might be in our listening growth on both sides. We may not change how they're going to vote R or D on the ballot, but is changing their minds the primary goal, or is it taking us into a deeper space of learning and growing both parties that might be kind of more that communion goal than just being civil with one another? I think that's a part of why there may be. Now, I wonder if out of that conversation you're remembering, it was kind of more of, well, we just have to have equal sides to be fair. I think that's worth, you know, well, is that really what our goal is? Or if our goal is really to deepen our understanding of how we live peaceably with one another, even with these differences, see the difference between civility and communion there. and churches have to wrestle with that, to your point. And I would say, well, when I got to Arvada, I would say about at least 10 people came to me and said, you need to know I voted for Trump. And they
What
wanted
was the term? I go to what?
they said,
Oh.
I need to know I voted for Trump.
Oh,
And I'm here because I believe kind of in the social justice issues of this church, but politically I'm on the conservative end. So I think that they were telling me that to remind me to create a generous hospitality for them too. And so it is a tension for congregations in that space. I appreciate you bringing that up. Sharon and then Ben.
Well, Katie made me think of that line that not only did she kind of refer to, but I think you and both Lauren talked about curious kindness. And I think you talked about curiosity or something, didn't you?
Curious learning is a part of
Yeah,
it.
and then she said, we would say to somebody else, this seems really important to you. Can you tell me why?
Yeah.
And so like that man that said, well, we need to do, we whatever he said, and to say to him, well, this sounds really important to me. Say more about why, and see how that conversation would go. I've never done that. I hope I can from now on. I hope that I can learn from those messages, that because it's really hard for me to talk with somebody of an opposing political stand, not so much Christian, but political. And just to open it up to say, that's really important to you, isn't it? Can you tell me why? Hear what that sounds like compared to, well, I just really don't agree with you.
You have to slow down. You
Which
have to
is
slow
true.
down and create space for that conversation too. You can't just shut somebody off and go to the other aisle in the grocery store.
It is kind of curious to me to hear their answer. I'm curious about why did they come to that particular belief? Where did they come from? Because some of the ones I know call themselves Christians, not all, but most of them do. So that was really helpful to me.
Ben?
my point is not nearly as profound as you guys's, but my hope would be that people would come to use our building because they find us to be hospitable, welcoming, and affirming of differences and of them. And as a side note, that they might pay us too. For the use of the building.
Well, interestingly, we had the League of Women Voters there last night, and the county commissioner was there. And she pulled Lauren aside. Lauren was telling me that this morning and just said, I've been in this community for a long, long time. And I've really been impressed with how Arvada United Methodist Church has historically been a place where people can come to have hard conversations and meaningful conversations.
That's
And,
good to hear.
and so, that kind of a question, we don't know the motivation behind the person that may have asked that question, Katie, at that meeting about, we'll make sure we get the other side. But I do think if we're going to enter into that curious learning space, we always want to check ourselves and say, have we created a space where these kinds of civil discourses can happen in the context of our own faith? It's a reasonable question to ask. May not have to be reduced to, well, we have to give each side equal time. I would want to push back against that too. But how is engaging or inviting a group of a different perspective, how is that helping us deepen in our curious learning? How is that helping us deepen in our witness to say we are a church where everyone matters to God and to the church?
But she also said that that Christians, that are more progressive or to the left should be more vocal. And I wanted to say, well, aren't you a member of Faithful America? Because that's what that group is. But they're trying to be more outspoken and more visible and get more people. And when I hear your sermons, it sounds like you're saying we in our progressive and open and accepting ways want to let people know we think that's wonderful and they should join us. So I guess, I'm not saying we couldn't have a forum, but for that, but it's like, but this is who we are. And while I'm not against curious learning about another side, aren't we wanting to promote why we believe what we do?
Yes. I'll give you an example. And Sharon might remember this too. There was a real movement in the 90s and in the early 2000s with youth groups about, in confirmation, exposing them to all the world religions. Take them to a synagogue, take them to a temple, take them to all those places. And my response was, but I need to first teach them how to filter their experience of those other places through our book, through our Christian faith, because what was happening was we were just exposing people to all these other different religions, but they weren't grounded enough in who we were. Does that make sense? And it kind of goes back to that hermeneutic of Jesus, right? Being a Christian in a pluralistic society doesn't just mean, hey, here's the smorgasbord, make whatever faith tradition you want here. I think that's a lot of people believe that's what the progressive church is. You get to just pick and choose what, if you want the coconut cream pie, if you want the turkey and gravy, you just kind of make your own religion. That's not progressive Christianity. Progressive Christianity is still Christianity. And I think a part of what she brought in our conversations for these past few weeks brought to us is a mindfulness of, who are we? How are we understand the scriptures? And then we engage this pluralistic world. Does that make sense? And I think that is our responsibility. It's my responsibility as a pastor. It's our responsibility as a church to teach the Christian faith and then understand the other world religions through those very unique lenses. And I know there's some people at our church who actually don't believe that, who believe that, everything's kind of on an equal plane. It's all a smorgasbord, pick and choose what you want. That I think we call ourselves progressive Christians for a reason. Otherwise, we could just say we're politically progressive, right? Am I resonating with anything here? Or am I taking you into weird spaces now? Jenny?
This really brings back a time for Greg and I when our kids were in middle school. We were part of a program called Search for Life in our Methodist church. And this was in Kansas. And we took the kids to a Jewish synagogue. We took them to a Catholic church. We took them to Dallas to the big SMU church. We took them to an African American church down in Dallas. And so they had all these different experiences, but I'm not sure that we spent a lot of time on exactly what Methodists believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it seemed like a great program, but it really, it lacked focus on what the whole purpose was there, which is for them to be aware of other things, but to know what our church believed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's kind of a tension. It's a tension.
Yeah.
And with the spiritual journey, we balanced that better because we went to all those places too, remember? But we did the Three Amigos book.
Yes.
Jewish, a Muslim, and a Christian.
Well, it was when we did, Sharon, it was when we did the Faith Club. It was after 9/11.
Yeah.
That
was
get me
so
wrong.
Oh, but we
were adults.
But we're adults, and we also have worked on our Christian spirituality a lot. So
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
And that was fascinating, Sharon. I loved that we were able to hear those three gentlemen. We read the book and then went to the presentation, some of us, and it was wonderful. It was very rich. But another thing that came out, a number of different times you have mentioned, I think, and I think it came through with her, and it's in the book on page 179 at the end of that first full paragraph about Bonhoeffer.
Mhm.
And we prefer our own thoughts to those of the Bible. We no longer read the Bible seriously. We read it no longer against ourselves, but only for ourselves. So in other words, it's easy to use it however you want, but to really maybe look inside and then it goes on and says, this is the goal for us today, that we would rightly receive and interpret the Bible, hearing it even when it speaks against us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't do that well.
Good point. And that kind of goes back to that Richard Rohr statement a couple of weeks ago, yes, scripture consoles us, but let it first confront us and challenge us. Yeah. So it's
The
not,
three C's.
yeah, it's not throwing out the consolation, but instead of making that your starting point. And didn't she do a good job with that when she was talking around some of the Old Testament and Hebrew scriptures around the way we treat immigrants, right?
Yes.
That judgment and condemnation does come on the nations that forsake the immigrant or the stranger. Yeah. Now, if I got up at Arvada United Methodist Church every Sunday and laid that out, I'd probably hear something, not because of the care for the immigrants, but I'm not comfortable with that judgment of a nation, So that's where, we kind of have to wrestle with that, right? But if we invite the scriptures to confront us and challenge us as much as we invite them to console us,
Yes.
that would be a healthy thing. But it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to hear. Yeah. Any other takeaways as we wrap up? Just big ideas that this study or the book or the reading of the book just made you kind of think, I'm just going to keep working on this. Or we've already lifted up a couple of things personally, which I really appreciate.
Amy, you mentioned that that last sentence in the book, the church lives in the midst of dying because God is faithful to his people. That reminded me of a sermon I heard when I was a freshman in college at the eighth quadrennial MSM gathering. And it was called the Cruciform Principle, where Christ dying on the cross emptied himself into the world, which is similar to a point that John Cobb makes in Christ in a Pluralistic World. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, anyway, that was just an interesting thing I noticed.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Any other big ideas?
My big idea is to be doing more books like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like you mentioned earlier, Amy, tackling the big questions, and not being afraid to step up and say, you know what, I'm curious. I want to know what's going on with this. And what do you think about this? Sharon made a really good point about, the curiosity of why people believe what they do. I don't think we as Americans, especially in today's day and age, with the divisiveness, we have such a fear of offending somebody, or you just don't want to hear the answer, or you know what I mean? And so I would like to know the answer. I may not like the answer that they give me. I may not agree with the answer they give me, but that doesn't mean that I don't respect the answer that they give me. because it's their opinion, it's their decision, not mine. You know, we're gonna part ways, and depending upon who it is, I may never see them again. So it's not like I have to, you know, you tell me something and oh my goodness, I have to believe you. You know, that's false learning to me. So.
Yeah, and I think that's really, I didn't get a chance to really drive it home enough, I think, at that 8:15 service Sunday, but that's really what the challenge I was kind of trying to have us go, what would it look like if the Christian community went beyond civility to really seek that kind of Ephesians 2 image of a new relationship with somebody in that between the either or the Republican Democrat, to find a third way, which is, I think, God's trying to guide us.
Yeah, the middle way, find the middle way.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was helpful.
Hey,
Sharon and Ben, or yeah, Sharon. real
Well,
quick.
I'll tell you that I tried to do that with my college roommate that I've known for hundreds of years. And I took the Parker Palmer rules of how to talk to each other. And I learned that I can't do it with somebody I love. It's easier for me to do it with somebody that I, you know, may know, but not love. I mean, you know, I haven't come to the place. And that's the challenge for me, because I love this woman. I mean, we've been friends for hundreds of years, and my daughter's named after her. And I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was just too hard for me. So that was the learning I had. And so it's like, what do you do with that? You know, and so we've sort of got a truce that we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
To preserve our friendship. And I'm sure that happens in families too, you know. So but if I have an acquaintance that I could do it with, I think I could do it better.
Yeah.
Somebody I don't know that deeply. I have too much vested in the relationship.
It's risky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very scary.
Thank you. Ben?
I'm curious, Katie may remember, has the church ever done a study of Marcus Borg's book, Reading the Bible Again for the First Time?
Yes, Rusty did it.
Rusty did it? Okay.
Years ago, though. I mean, Rusty's been gone for how many years? So I think we could do that again someday. Just saying.
We have a
Maybe
whole new
this-
congregation since Rusty.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah. But yes, Ben, I want to say he ddid it back in, I don't know, 2012-ish.
And
Yeah.
you know, I think I feel a responsibility when we do studies, because I really try to do one at least once a semester, and we'll do one again next spring, to not only have books about how to read the Bible, but really read the Bible, right? And so this was kind of another perspective on how to, and I've taught some of those too, where we looked at the different ways to read the Bible and things. And I'm really feeling like next spring, we really need to do some Bible reading. You know, our Kaleidoscope group does that very, very methodically, as an example. I just met with a St. Paul, the academic dean. St. Paul is in Kansas City, but she lives here in Arvada, and they've been worshiping with us. Sharon and Tom, another Sharon and Tom.
Really?
Yeah. And her whole, I said, well, tell me about your research as a PhD in religion and theology. She said, I've done a study of the New Testament and the relationships with children in the New Testament. I'm like, how cool would that be?
Ooh, that'd be good.
Yeah. I mean, we don't, we're like, oh yeah, those kids, they're kind of like the side characters in the stories we tell about Jesus, right? Other than the let the children come to me.
Right.
So I think we're going to try to drop into some real Bible study.
That's awesome.
And kind of hold in tension. So maybe another semester we might do Marcus Borger,
Right.
too, but we can get into a habit and practice of just talking about the Bible and never reading it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and Amy, that's a very good point. I know last year or two, I guess it was almost 2 years ago now that we did this, when you and I did Luke and Acts,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm me online and you live. I think one of the things that was really wonderful about that is that almost everybody I talked to after the fact, for like 6 months afterwards, they were saying, I really enjoy being able to do a Bible study and just talk to people about it. In smaller type of group. It's not like you're having a whole congregation full of people, which made it fun.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things that because, and I don't know if it's that we're all getting of an age to where people are really wanting to dig into some things a little bit deeper. Our culture is getting to a space where people are wanting to know more information as well. So I think the alternates, and that's one of the things that Lauren and I have talked about quite a bit the last few months about how we're going to navigate that with the church and what it is they want. And I know definitely, like you said, we definitely want to be looking at doing more Bible studies. So thank you for noting that. And yeah, and please make sure that I know when you're wanting to do that so we don't counter program,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
that'd be great.
once I get a chance to think about sermons in the spring, that's when I start thinking about it.
Yeah. I'll give you another month or two.
Good, thank you. Thanks. I'm still coming up from air.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
friends, this has
there's a
been,
new, oh, I'm
oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Jenny.
There's a new member for our church, in their church, a man who was looking for a man's Bible study group.
Uh-huh.
So that's something to keep in mind too.
Right. That's right.
That's really intriguing because just so y'all know, Greg Futch is part of the adult ed lead team that we're growing. And I had asked him, because this is something that I've been seeing a lot in the last few years, is I think more men in our church are wanting to do something like a men's Bible study, men's sort of spiritual journey kind of thing, like what we do, not necessarily using the same exact format that
Right.
spiritual journey does,
Right.
but they're ready for that kind of an ideal. And so I mentioned that to Greg and I said, I don't know if you're ready to lead something like that, or if we need to kind of help see if there's another man in the congregation who would be willing to start that going. But thank you, Jenny, for noting that, because I really do think that is something that after the first of the year. Yeah. Do you happen to remember the gentleman's name?
Yes, I do. It's,
Okay, can you,
okay, I'm trying to think, Bill Enright.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lori's husband? Lori
Yes.
went on the retreat.
Yes, yes, she did.
Fantastic.
Her husband was looking for something.
Great to know.
And so I suggested the Thursday morning book study.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what I would
he might
lead him
do.
towards right now, but yeah, good to know. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Good. Well,
Thanks.
as every learning opportunity should inspire more learning, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited that this has helped us kind of open our own personal minds, but also help us think more corporately about how we continue
Yes.
to grow in grace and faith and learning as a church. That's very valuable. That's a learning space I love being in with you all too. So
Yeah.
to you all, let's I know we're a little bit over, so we don't want to prolong our time, but I do want us to close with our chat prayer. That's always an important time, and oh Lord, do we not have so many burdens on our hearts, especially for these folks that are in the wake of yet another hurricane. So if you want to just take a moment to go to your chat and let's share our prayer concerns, and then we'll close in a time of prayer.
Beautiful.
Let us pray, friends. We give you thanks, oh God, for this space for curious learning and for leaning into new lessons for our lives and for our faith community. We're grateful for gifted and talented scholars and teachers among us, like Kaitlyn and so many others in our midst to help us to navigate these uncertain waters where we find ourselves right now. And we especially lift up all the prayers and concerns for so many of your people in times of literal storms and storms of relationships and war. God, draw us so close to those who are hurting and seeking to be healed and even rescued this night. We pray a blessing upon each of us as we go into this night and into our own mission fields with a sense of some more wisdom and direction and clarity that's come from the study together and from our learning and growing and even making ourselves available for the scriptures, your holy word, to challenge us and to confront us even before sometimes that word might console us. Thank you for the ways, God, that you give us the company of one another and the deep witness of this community of faith who shares in learning and growing and serving and being your body in this place where we've been planted. We lift up all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Again, thanks to you all and those who are joining us by looking at the recording later. Let's keep a conversation happening of how we be the church in the midst and blessings. And I look forward to seeing you very soon this week. Take care and be well.
Bye.
You too.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
again.